I was reminded of it by, I guess your story about the car, and yeah, I guess that primarily, but we talked a little bit more about that. But it's not a miracle, so I don't think anyway, whatever. But it is a funny story. I had this old car. It's the kind of car that when it needs painting, and you price how much it would cost to paint it, that's more than it is worth. You know? So you go get a spray can paint. This is literal. I just start painting with this can of spray can. Well, that didn't work. I produced a leopard. Because that's the way spray cans do. They paint there, but not, it make a spot. And then I got a paintbrush and smoothed that all out. I didn't care. Whatever. You couldn't see the strokes unless you got within 5 feet. So just don't invite too many people to ride with you. Well, and it was a Toyota, but all the letters had fallen off except Y-O, and so we called it the Blue Yo. Okay, it's an old car. It had over 100,000 miles on it. Well, it needed a new battery, so I drove up to one of these little stores. I forget, Western Auto, I believe it was. And parked right in front of the store, big glass window all the way across, walked in the door, got the battery, came to check out, and they said, well, you'll get so many dollars off if you'll get your old battery and bring it in. I said, no problem. And like I said, the store is only as wide as this room here, sort of, and there's a big plate glass thing in it, and my car was parked right there. So I walk out, open the door, and I look right there, and there's no car. Now, my reaction was utter disbelief. Why would anybody take my car? Who would want to steal that? It was so incredible. And, I wasn't concerned as so much just incredible, Of all the cars here, he picks that one. Must be blind. He's going to have a wreck for sure. At any rate, I'm just utter disbelief. This is incredible. There's not a corner to go around here. You have to look for your car. I don't have to go out and look. I just put it this way. It's not there. It's just not there. And and I had the car keys in my pocket. Even if they had picked my car, the keys. Well, how would they start it? Well, I guess people can overcome that. But yeah. At any rate. I don't remember now how I discovered where my car was, but it was back in the back of the store to be worked on. What had happened is somebody had walked back there and said, I've got a Toyota up front, and I want you to bring it back here so I can work on it, and gave him the keys. He went up there and he saw my Toyota. One key fits all, I suppose. Stuck the wrong key in my car and took it back there.
Oh my gosh.
So I ran back there and I said, no, don't fix my car. I'm not paying for it. You got the wrong car. But that was, like I say, I don't know if there was a miracle there. But it was an interesting and kind of entertaining car story that I was reminded of. But the thing that the awareness of miracles, one of the things they're supposed to do for us is to let us to understand, and just our general overall worldview, that you don't have to see anything as a disaster. It's not. Does the Course say that? Yes, it says disasters are not real, and reality is not disastrous. If you wish to think otherwise, that's your choice. But it is your choice, so you don't have to do that. Why not choose to say instead, all is well? The Course taught me to do that. One time I had to drive all the way to Oak Ridge to this meeting, and the car died at a stop sign, the motor. I started back up, drove to the next stop sign, died again. And I said, I don't like this. Once is fine. Maybe I checked it out a third time. It died again. Uh-oh, there may be a problem here. I went and drove to the filling station and I said, what does that mean? I asked one of the guys that worked there, and he said, well, it probably means your alternator is having trouble. Well, and I said, well, what happens if the alternator goes out? He says, you don't go anywhere. I said, well, okay, thank you. Well, I was going to go to a meeting of some sort. And so I got in my car and I drove right back home. I'm not going to go to that meeting, have it die out there. But my attitude as I drove back was, well, I wonder what new thing is going to come from this. Mm-hmm. That was my attitude. I didn't regard it as an accident, actually. I just said, well, for some reason or other, I didn't need to be there. And as it turned out, something really good happened because I didn't go to that meeting. I won't go into that. It's just a detail. But it teaches you to look at it that way. See, if there's an apparent disaster, what that means is this situation has come up and the ego has suggested something worse that can come from it, and put that in your mind as the next thing that's going to occur. Yes. But you don't have to accept that. So just get kind of, and I think that if you begin practicing this, you'll get in the habit of saying, I can see this as God sees it. I don't have to see it as the ego sees it. The ego is always going to see disaster. And if you ask God for his list of disasters to show up on your internet, your machine or something, if he would actually do that, it would be 0, no entries. There are no disasters.
You asked the wrong person.
You asked the wrong. Your own ego will be glad to reply there. Yes, Randy.
We got a room full of people, I believe, that are practicing no disaster theology. Okay, so we still see stuff that we don't like, and we need help with that, I think.
Okay, that just reminded me of something I was wanting to say anyway. It occurred to me that you could think of the Course of Miracles in 2 terms. There's the big course and there's the little course. Okay.
This is new.
I like that.
And what the little course means, I mean, as it applies to you and family. You kind of like, I put family in quotes. That just means your little situations. It could be your work, whatever. This means as it applies to the world. Whatever's happening, the big world. In other words, this applies to the big world, this applies to your little world. So I'm just dividing it up into 2 areas of application here that we all run into. There's the big world on television, you might say, or on the internet or whatever, or whatever you hear, and there's the little world when you walk into your house, or go to your work, or try to paint something, or whatever. Try to drive a car and not lose it. So it has application at both areas, and your question, I was going to somehow relate this to your question.
My question was, seeing that, we've got a room full of practicing,
right,
seeing the high side or, the sunny side, whatever, and yet there's other things that happen it just doesn't seem to apply to, and how
did you have this in mind or this in mind?
Help with that.
That's how I was going to apply. Did you have the big world or the little world in mind? Or just both of them?
Both of them.
Both of them.
I mean, it's
okay.
kind of like the question is about both of them, really. I mean,
okay.
You got a room full of people at least practicing little c. I wouldn't doubt that some of us practice big C. Maybe some better than others. I mean, I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, does it?
It's just our choice, And like better or worse is not really the relevant term so much as is it your preference, Because we choose to do it this way or that way. We choose to see it as a disaster or not as a disaster. We're doing it like we want to do it, in other words. Yes.
I was doing a lesson and I stayed on it for a few days. It's all things are but echoes for the voice of God. And that applies to that. It just everything is.
Right.
Somehow God is present in everything.
Absolutely. That is a choice that we make. In other words, I'm going to see it that way. The egos are going to say the opposite. God is in nothing. It's just all disaster probably. So what I would say is that when you do this, you're really concentrating on using miracles. And I'll just throw in guidance as well, guidance from the Holy Spirit. You're using this to deal with a situation. You know, a situation comes up, they're about to have to do extra work on my little pool motor, and I ask for a miracle, and then they don't have to do it. Now, but again, I can't stress too much that when you ask for a miracle, you may have a solution already in mind. Forget that. It may turn out to be exactly that. It may not. It doesn't matter. But if you have the solution already in mind, what you're really doing is telling God to do your bidding. God, I figured this problem out. I've got a problem here. I know what the answer is. You do it. You know, and what the Course says is that the Holy Spirit already has His answer. He doesn't want your answer. It may turn out to be the same. It may not. But His answer is going to be better in general, you know, than yours. Because He just sees the whole situation. You see a limited part of a situation. It's kind of like the car. Norm can find his car, or he cannot find his car and get a better one.
Right.
I mean, you know, and then they find it, and then get his money back, but he still got a better one now. Whatever. You don't know. You just don't know. And so what gets you in troubles is you assume you know. Your basic stance to God is, that's okay, you know, not needed as far as your help is concerned. Why? Well, because I've got this covered. I know. I'll take care of it. That's your basic stance. Well, that's okay. That's your choice. It can be your basic stance. But it's not what the Course is suggesting that you do. It says, no, the truth of the matter is you don't know. But you like to think you do. So that's the little tug of war right there. I like to think I know, but really I know I don't. No. And that opens you then to me. If you already think you know, who needs miracles? Who needs God's answer? I've got the answer. Now, that's not a sin to have that thought. It just doesn't work very well. That's all. You know, if you want hard lessons, and that's why the way the Course would look at it. If you want it promises you general lessons, but only if you're led by the voice that actually knows. Not if you're led by the ego's voice, which will show you the next pothole for your car to find. You know, the one of the best things about the Course is that it really lets you know what the ego's like. It's talking about the ego all the time, and none of it's good. It's the ego doesn't like you. It doesn't love you. The ego sees you as a weak, failed God with a little g that deserves whatever bad things come your way. And it really wants you to believe that it is the true God and to do its bidding. So, you know, and then it lists a lot of characteristics of the ego so you'll be able to recognize. Well, this is just the main one is, I know the answer. I've got the answer. I just want it done. God, do it. You see. Well, has nothing to do with the Course in Miracles, and you can do that if you want. It's like a general praying for victory in the next conflict, you know. Well, God's will is probably not have the conflict in the first place, but who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to say that. I don't know what God's will. That's the point. But what the Course assures us is that the Holy Spirit will bring that into your situation. And furthermore, it says His answer will be one in which no one loses. Oh, I don't usually even take that into account. It's only will I lose. You know, hey, you guys, hey, that's your problem. Well, that's not the way the Holy Spirit thinks at all. He wants you to win, and He wants the other people to win. Otherwise, the problem is not solved. Now, my daughter used to be she used to be a lawyer, and she had her own practice for a while, and she would say, pretty challenging job, and she would say when she went into a court thing, she would have the thought, I want whatever is best for all to occur. Not that I want to win my case, or lose it, of course. We would never ask for that, I suppose. But she didn't ask that she would win either. She said, I don't know which is best here. I'm going to argue as best I can for my client. But as far as the outcome, I'm not going to say what the outcome ought to be. And that's the kind of attitude that we need as well, because the Holy Spirit thinks you're important, but he thinks those other people are important too. And he wants what is best for them, basically in a spiritual sense. And what the Course says is that the Holy Spirit will give you everything that does not block your way to the light. He wants to take you to the light. He doesn't care what kind of car you're driving, you see. He just wants to take you to the light. If it won't block your way to the light, or somebody else's, of course, then that's going to be a solution that the Holy Spirit would or could bring to you. But you don't have to concern yourself, in other words, with your understanding of it. You just say, I don't understand. Well, none of us understand all the ins and outs of anything, you know. And so you ask for a miracle of guidance. God is on your side. You don't know what your side is, though. That's the only problem. He is on your side. You think, well, this is my side. No, actually, that's not. It kind of looks that way. You see, and so help is available. Yes.
Rather, I envision rather than God or Holy Spirit bringing me to the light, it's more of the light is within, and the Holy Spirit helps knock those blocks of that vision to let it out.
That reminds me, Larry, of teaching physics, which I used to do, years ago. And one of the ideas in physics is that velocity is relative. It's like sometimes I would go to a class and I would say, well, who in here thinks they're moving? Who in here thinks they're not moving? You don't have to hold your hand up exactly. I could get you on either way because it's relative. You're both right no matter what you say, and you're both wrong no matter what you say. And so if someone says, well, I'm not moving, I said, well, are you on the earth? Yeah, well, it's moving. It depends on your reference points. You say, you're moving. Well, is the earth moving? Well, yes, of course. Well, if it would stop rotating around the sun, it wouldn't be moving. Well, actually, it would be stationary with respect to the sun, but the sun is moving. We're in a great big old galaxy, and our little solar system is rotating around the center of our galaxy, actually.
So what is the universal stationary point?
Nobody knows anything about that, Maybe there is one, maybe there isn't. I have no idea. I think that gets into another matter. I think that has to do with acceleration. But relative velocity is like this. Suppose you're in outer space. Blackness in all directions. Black there, black there, and you got your spacesuit on. And you've set it on 5 miles an hour, and you're moving along. But I don't even know whether. Well, anyway, let's forget about this. The project. Let's not turn anything on. You're just floating. I'll say floating out there, and you see somebody else floating out there. Oh, I got a friend. Now, and you notice that you're getting closer to the friend. Well, is the friend moving or is you moving?
Makes no difference.
It's a meaningless question. All answers are right, all answers are wrong.
The
Doesn't
observation that
anything.
you and your friend are getting closer is significant.
Yeah, I think it's significant too. There is I guess but you don't know which is the one that's whether he or she is doing the moving, or whether you are doing the moving, or whether you both are moving. It doesn't matter. What's significant is the relative distance is decreasing, and there would be no way to tell. And that's because there's no right answer to that. It's a meaningless question.
There's no reference.
It just doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything, see. So when the cop stops and gives you a ticket for going at 50 miles per hour, I wouldn't bother to tell him, well, I actually move at 100,000 miles per hour because the Earth's going around the sun, because then he just writes you another ticket for being a smart aleck, you know, or whatever.
Now, when there's 3 points of view and you've got some communication, you can set some parameters up, but when there's just 1 or 2, it's a different story.
So, let's think a little bit about what happened. Okay, this is what you do here. What do you do here? We don't really ask. Well, you could, but it's not quite so common to ask for miracles about big situations. But sometimes we do. Sometimes we just say, "Oh, good, I get to judge." That's really all that happened. Oh boy, I get to judge it and let these people that are messing up, I'm the one that will know what the right solution is, and I get to jump in here and judge as to what the right solution is. I won't bother to tell them because they won't listen to me, but if they only knew what I knew, it would all be better. Well, that's just all, you're just being deceived. Not that you don't know what's better, but it's the same answer about the relative velocity. It's just a meaningless question about which is better or best. Anything you do will help some and hurt others, you know. But you say, well, yes, but sometimes some solutions help a lot more people than some other, and that's true. Going to California and starting more fires is not going to help anybody. Trying to put out the ones that are there seems like that's a helpful solution. But what the course has a challenging solution to this, and it's hard for most people to probably accept. And it says that the world is not real. What that means, and it also says this. It says that everything you see happening out there has already occurred in another era prior to this one. Already occurred, already been finished, already been done. It turned out this way or that way. And the end of all human history has already been reached, and we are viewing it now from inside a movie, basically, if you want to think of it that way, and watching it all go by. It's already occurred. You say, well, what the point is watching it again? Who wants to see that again? There are two points. You watch it again because the ego thinks it's fun to watch what the world does, and you come up with your various little answers or whatever. It's no fun to be fighting the forest fire. Well, it might be if you want to save the world. Then you could be in there trying to do that. But the other reason is because when it first happened, the Course really teaches that time is over. It's gone. Human history is over. It's finished. Gone. Done. So, and again, why are we watching it again? Because as in that first run, we rejected the Holy Spirit's help. Or his solutions. He had solutions and help for all these different things. And we said, I don't want it. Yeah, but this will bring you closer to God. Don't want God. I'm doing it we're totally on the I know stuff there. And so things rolled on and things happened, whatever happened. Now we're reviewing it so that we have the opportunity to accept the Holy Spirit's solution and understanding of the situation instead of ours. And now we're open to that, at least to some degree, and say, okay, I'm going to accept that. I'm going to accept your solution. Now, his solution is always there are no disasters. That's his solution. How many people this week, hearing about forest fires in California, said, no disaster? Please raise your hand. There may be a few, but I'm just reminding you in case it wasn't unanimous.
Yeah. We're dreaming of disaster.
That's right.
God's outside the dream and says, no disaster.
That's right. In other words, it's our mind that puts the label disaster on there, you see. And the Course says, well, or Jesus, I guess, when he was writing all this, or through Helen at any rate, must have realized, well, we've got to have a practical side to this, or you'll just be written off as lunatics. You can say there's no disaster, but then when it happens to you and you get all upset and blah, 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 what do your words mean? See? Well, it's no disaster no out there, but I have lots of disasters, see. I get victimized all the time. The Course says there's no such thing as a victim. Because, I guess we just read it, your mind produces, what happened, I believe we just read something like that. Your mind actually produces the situation. From this other view I was talking about, you're watching a movie. The movie's already occurred. What's happening is you have a chance now to react and respond differently. And every time you do so, the Course goes on to say that that gives Jesus permission to go back in time and change what happened in the original version. Actually, he doesn't really change it, he just wipes it out, I think. I mean, well, he makes it consistent with the Holy Spirit's correction, which is to say, the world is not a real thing. It's not something real like you think it is.
So the disaster's easy enough to say that it's just way too easy for us to see things as disastrous and wrong and judge them and fall in that ego trap. How is, when we look at the world as benevolent, is that the same thing?
Oh, let's not look at the world. Let's not do that. I don't see the world as benevolent at all, but I don't see it as disastrous either. It's more like neutral. I mean, the Course says you give the world all the meaning it has. You see, so it's not the world the world doesn't carry around its own meaning in its own pockets to pull out and say, yeah, it's disastrous or it's benevolent. So that's why the Course doesn't believe in good and evil. It doesn't believe in the good any more than it believes in evil. It doesn't believe in right any more than wrong. If you believe in right and wrong, right, wrong, where's that come from? It comes from the fact that I know, and I'm the one that tells you what's right and wrong, and you're the one that tells somebody else what's right and wrong. And the Course says, just let that go. You don't have to have that. If you want it, that's fine. It's your business. Really. No, the angels above are not mad at you. God is not mad at you if you want to do that. He gives us freedom to do that for as long as we wish. That's why the Course does not try to convert people. It doesn't is not interested in that. If you're ready to think this way, then you'll find your way to it, and find some help in that regard. But if you're not, you don't belong here. I mean, there's no point in trying to push something to somebody's mind when they don't want it. It doesn't fit anyway. We're responsible for our own choices, and so we're allowed to make them. The point is we have help in making them. So we don't have to go there. If the world were benevolent, we're good all the time. A lot of people probably believe the world. We have a wrong worldview. We need to start seeing the world as good, and then even gooder, and then even better than that. And it's eventually going to be perfected and just taken up into heaven. And the Course said, forget that. That's not occurring. It's just not occurring. And there's that nice story that we all have heard, or probably, of Helen asking Jesus, why don't we just fix this place? Instead of saying it's not real, let's just fix it. It's got a lot of good stuff. There are some benevolent-looking aspects. The sun is really nice and warmer when it warms us during the day, etc. There's some benevolent things. There are some challenging things, and there are also some disastrous things. If you're at the base of a mountain and there's an avalanche, you want to stand there and practice, this is not a disaster.
Or do you want to leave?
If you can leave, that's even better. Say this is not a disaster because I'm leaving. If you can't leave, your main task is to say this is not a disaster.
In the face of that avalanche, you're either saying this is what's supposed to happen and I'm okay with it?
I'm fine.
Or you're going down the hill with it, or actually you're doing both
Whatever.
no matter what you do.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. There is no problem. That's the attitude that is brought to whatever situation. Avalanche. Now you don't seek them out. Don't misunderstand me. You don't
no
know.
need to. There's plenty.
Yeah, that's right. There's no need to do that. The earth itself will provide plenty of opportunities.
So what was Jesus' answer to Helen?
Oh yeah, thank you. Norm's a really helpful guy.
I try.
And because he knows what the answer is as well. And and well, he said, Helen, this is a desert. There is no water in a desert. What you do when you're in a desert is you leave the desert. You don't come in trying to bring the Atlantic Ocean into the desert with lots of pipes and da-da-da-da-da. You just simply move to the adjacent country. That's not a desert. We already got a country that's not a desert. It's our home. That's where we're going. Now, if that is true, if the world here is not real, we have to then ask, what is its purpose? If it's not going to be our future home in heaven, which it is not, what is the purpose? Do we want to deny it and say, I'm going to be an ascetic? We don't use that word. You know, asceticism is when you practice doing without. You fast all the time and you go to bed on a bed of pins, whatever. and all that. We don't. Our world does not go that route much anymore. They used to do that some, maybe still in some places. So we think instead that the world is going to be our heaven, and then you get your foot in it and you find it's not so heavenly. So the Course says it's not that the world needs to be thrown away. It is to let the Holy Spirit use it to heal your mind. And what it's going to heal your mind of is to believe that the world is real. But the world is important right now. And just as your body is. And you let these solutions be brought to you, and so your mind will begin to realize, oh, there really isn't a disaster here. And one little story. You're out on a tree and you're sawing off a limb for some reason or other, and a great big old limb cracks right above you, and it's coming right down at you. I mean, the limb's this big around. It's going to take your head off or whatever. And what do you say? There is no disaster. And what happens? This limb splits when part of it goes to your right and part to your left. Well, trees can do that. That's a true story. It didn't happen to me. But it did happen to a very spiritual person who said, there's no problem.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Let's join in a circle and have a closing thought.